theory that in order to actually make a living as an artist full time, that's your job. You go in, you make music, and that you need 1,000 true fans. That's 1,000 people buying your stuff, attending your shows, actually engaged with what you're producing. And so I think often people get really caught up in vanity metrics because they're like, oh, I only got 10,000 views on my song that I released. But all of those, being able to pay attention to how long they've watched it, how much they're sharing it, how much they're engaging with it, is actually far more relevant to your career as an artist, because that is what's a reflection of what your audience is truly engaged with. Hi. My name's Dama, and I am your moderator today for today's panel, utilizing your data to find your superfans. And we're going to go along the line and introduce ourselves so you guys can hear a little bit about the panel and what they do and how they can help you with their expertise. So,
start with me. My name is Jeremiah Siama. I present a radio show on BBC Radio 1 and 1 Extra, which is arguably the biggest station in Europe. So I do that every single Saturday night on Radio 1.
Nice. Hi guys, I'm Will. I'm a label manager at a distributor based in Berlin called Paradise Worldwide. I work with artists and labels on strategy. We provide the pipes to get your music out there in the world and work on how we can develop you, how we can promote you, and also how we can collect your royalties.
I'm Katura. I am the founder of a cultural marketing agency called /. So we work with artists and brands in the music, culture, and entertainment space. And we do social media strategy, content creation, paid ads, social media campaigns, looking at different ways to kind of build audiences and create communities. And I'm also a DJ, and I run a music platform called So Future, which is focused on electronic and underground music.
Hi, I'm Faisal from Morocco and Amsterdam. I'm a music director and artist manager for NMG Music Group. We represent some of the top names in the Arab industry, and I'm the MENA director for Paradise Worldwide.
Amazing. My expertise is slightly less impressive than all of you guys because you have such a wealth, but I'm a music journalist and I work across multiple platforms, but mainly Clash Magazine and Guap, with a specialism in UK rap and Black British music. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what is a superfan? How would you define a superfan?
Is the question for me?
It's an open question.
Okay. Well, I think a superfan is someone that will really drive miles to see your show and that will follow everything that you do. The fans over the last 10 years have changed. So now with the social media platforms, a lot of these fans are creating fan pages for their favorite artists. And then you see that they live the life of the artist, basically. So they follow the artist in everything he does or she does. And I think these are the super fans.
Okay. Does anybody have like an add-on?
I would describe a superfan as somebody who goes beyond listening to the music and takes action that kind of increases an artist's earnings. So that might be through shows, it might be merch, it might be subscription, all the things that ultimately lead to the artist being able to make money off their art.
And yeah, I mean, me coming from the distribution side of things, we have very engaged fans, and we have fans that are streaming your music a lot. And I think that's typically the angle that I'm coming at things as a distributor. It's kind of funneling fan bases towards that niche that is the super fans. But I think mostly when people talk about super fans, they talk about those who will pay above and beyond or engage above and beyond what is required or what is normal. Like they'll buy the VIP tickets, they'll buy the colored vinyl, they'll buy the NFT, they'll join the Discord server, the Patreon subscription, whatever it might be that an artist is offering. And what we do as a distributor and also with Couture as well with campaigning, is you can kind of drill down into the fan base and find those most engaged fans, and out of that pool, you can find those super fans.
For me, I feel like a super fan is almost like family, where like you build a community and family isn't always blood. So a super fan could be someone that's seen your journey rise for over a couple of months or years, or someone that has just found your music or found you as a personality. So that's how I would describe a super fan, like family.
Okay, so if you were to think of an artist that you were like, yeah, they have that connection with their audience, that connection with their fan base, really on point, who comes to mind? Because I know I have one, but I want you guys.
I would say Beyonce. Definitely. The Beehive, obviously we know they're crazy. The Renaissance film was just released. That's completely sold out. When she originally announced the album, and on the website they just had like examples of merch. It wasn't even at the actual merch designs, and they were all sold out as well. It's a super active fan base that will spend money, but also they've built their own fandoms, and they are obviously fiercely protective of Beyonce. So be careful what you tweet about Beyonce if you don't want the Beehive to come for you. So yeah, they're super plugged in, very, very passionate. I've gone a level above just like listening to the music and going to the shows. They're like really engaged and really invested in her success as an artist.
I think I would choose Grimes, and she, particularly with the stuff that she's doing, very forward-thinking in the tech space, and a lot of what I think about when I think about superfans in the digital sphere is I think NFTs, but also a lot of the emerging techs that Grimes is quite interested in as well with AI, and actually I think recently she was providing stems to her tracks for her fans to remix and create new songs out of, and that's like an extra level of engagement from a fan base that I think those are super fans. I would say those people that are creating something new and they're really engaging, and there's a dialogue between the artist and the fan.
I was going to add, there's a DJ and producer called Uncle Waffles from South Africa, and I gave her first ever radio interview, and just seeing her journey over the last like 2-3 years and the community and super fans that she's created, one thing that a lot of us have in common is like every single super fan community has like its own name, whether it's the Beehive or the Wafflers or the Tigers, like everyone has their own super fan name. So yeah, Uncle Waffles would be there for me.
That's a really good choice. What about you, Faisal?
Well, I have a very good example of an artist that uses his fans to release his music. A very good friend, and I'm his music director. He's Saad Al-Mjarrad. It's a very big artist in the Arabic industry. And he uses his super fans to plan his releases. So he listens, he reads all the comments, he engages with his fans, and he really listens to the fans, what they want, what kind of songs they want to hear, when, where. And according to his data, he plans accordingly when and what to release.
Okay. See, one of the most interesting things about how artists and artist personas have developed over the past couple of generations, especially with social media, is how the things that you make and the things that you share need to be oriented towards like multi-platforms. You need to be able to repurpose your content, to be able to put it on TikTok, to be able to put it on Instagram, but also to have more immersive experiences. Have you ever seen anybody engage with their fans or do a kind of campaign that's been really out of the box but incredibly effective?
I don't think so, you know. Well, sometimes I feel like there's a very specific formula, at least from my perspective as someone that works in radio.
What's the formula?
The formula I feel like is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Like, I feel like if you create content that is almost like transcendable onto all different types of platforms, whether it be like a 15-second reel, where you can post that reel on TikTok as well, so you're almost like expanding, you know, your reach. But I don't think, well, at least for me, from where I'm sitting, I don't see anything else that can be very unique, unless you mention the stems, which is like, I mean, I've never heard anyone.
I mean, I think there was that track, I don't know, maybe it's not the best example, but something that comes to mind is that thing with that track between Bebe Rexha and David Guetta recently, where they were playing the song. It was an unreleased song, and they were playing it for months at festivals, and it was circulating just in TikTok, and it was having new iterations of the track way before they even decided to release it. And then after that process, they decided, okay, we'll take it to the studio, we'll make a finished track, and then we will make a campaign behind the finished track. So it kind of like came into fruition through the fans. The fans were the ones that actually encouraged the creation of the song. It wasn't even going to be a released song. So that's my understanding of it. I maybe not have the full picture of it, but
That's quite interesting, and I will get to you in a second because I see you itching right there. But that's really interesting because Skepta actually just dropped an album that was inspired by TikTok remixes that people would make like lo-fi remixes of his raps. And, you know, he's been expanding his genres and he was like, well, since people are going to be making money off this and it's my stuff, why don't I actually do it? So I think that's actually really interesting because that fan involvement in the process of creation has never been quite so close.
Well, I think we should go back to the data, because fans, I mean, every artist has a different fan base. For example, in the Arabic industry, a lot of the fans, they stream YouTube. You'll find artists with a lot of YouTube views, but not as much views or streams on Spotify. And it doesn't mean that they're not big. It's just a different platform, you know? So I think, and again, every artist needs to understand his audience and to understand which platforms are working for him. So I cannot agree to a formula because it doesn't work for everybody. So I'm sorry for that.
Oh, no, speak it.
No, we love a disagreement. It creates discourse, and we need that to be able to move the conversation. So when you talk about data and the things that you can recognize, what would you say for artists are the most useful metrics for them to be aware of and engaged with?
I can try it. So it's actually kind of linked to what Faisal was talking about just then. I think you have to look at each platform catering to a slightly different audience and providing slightly different data sets. Some of the platforms are way above and beyond what analytics they provide to artists and how accessible they are to artists. Sometimes you might only get data through an intermediary. You might get it through a third-party service. So you might be looking at streaming analytics through something like Chartmetric or through Songstats or through like a smart link which you provide, which you add onto your Instagram profile or something like this. But exactly as Faisal was saying, if you should look as an artist at what's right for you and then what data you can glean from that platform. So for example, on YouTube, it's basically the only platform which provides data into skip rate on a song. So you can see exactly which artists are most engaged, who's actually skipped through a track. You also have information into comments. You can engage with audiences directly. You can put polls, like fan polls, through the community tab if you have an artist channel, like a YouTube official artist channel. So that's something that's unique that YouTube provides. To take another example, Apple Music has its own unique data. It has Shazam. So you have indication of how engaged fans are being through the data through Shazam. Spotify has its own one. So I think that's, without rambling on about all of the different ones, I think you have to look at each of the different platforms and as an artist, try and be objective about which one's right for you and which data you need to find those fans. So.
I think there's such a wealth of data available across all of the different platforms. So from social media platforms to streaming platforms, like there's so much information you can get. I think, first of all, I would probably look at it in terms of what's relevant to you at what time, like whereabouts in your campaign or your artist journey are you. So if you're kind of at the start of your journey and you're trying to figure out, like, if you were to go on the road, if you're going to try and tour, then look at, even on, like, for example, SoundCloud or Spotify, and you've got tracks already, and it will tell you X amount of people streamed your track in this country. So slowly you can start to build up a picture of, okay, maybe that might be a good thing to do. And then from there, you might if you don't necessarily have, a solid enough fan base to actually do a tour in, I don't know, the Netherlands, for example, then you could also look at, well, what are the like community radio stations in Netherlands, or, what artists do I resonate with that are in that area, or what producers, like, and start building those relationships, and use that as a way to kind of just slowly really build your sort of like your tour path based on the information that you got available. So I think there is like so much information across all the different platforms, but I basically look at what's relevant to you at what point in your journey, and also what ties into whatever your personal metric of success is. I think followers, likes, these are all like vanity metrics, which at some point serve a purpose, but they're not necessarily the determining factor for the success of your career necessarily. So I think have a look at what's relevant to you and what ties into your own metrics of success rather than what is deemed to be successful.
I think vanity metrics is a really interesting idea as well, because often we'll see artists and they'll be really, really massive and they'll have millions of followers and they'll get this engagement, but a lot of the time it's because they have the money and the infrastructure to push it, and it kind of goes big and then dies down. Have you ever heard of I'm sure you guys have, the 1,000 true fans theory? And that's one that I don't know if if anybody's willing to explain it. I'm happy to do it, but okay. So it's this theory that in order to actually make a living as an artist full time, that's your job. You go in, you make music, and that you need 1,000 true fans. That's 1,000 people buying your stuff, attending your shows, actually engaged with what you're producing. And so I think often people get really caught up in vanity metrics because they're like, oh, I only got 10,000 views on my song that I released. But all of those, being able to pay attention to how long they've watched it, how much they're sharing it, how much they're engaging with it, is actually far more relevant to your career as an artist, because that is what's a reflection of what your audience is truly engaged with. So
I think, yeah, there's probably more value in working it out as a ratio. So it's not 10,000 views across the board, it's 10,000, but based on 10,000 divided by how many actual followers you have, like you said, for the percentage of those people that watched it. Well, how long did they watch it for? Did they hit the share button afterwards? I think that's probably more valuable to look at as a metric than just like the raw data, because I think it can be a bit misleading.
Sorry. I think a lot of artists have a lot of fans, but are all these fans true fans? Because we all know that a lot of artists buy fans. So I always say, you might have 1 million fans, but how many of them will pay a ticket to come to your concert? And I think that you need to focus on those fans if you want to be successful. So
I actually would make the distinction between followers and fans. I don't think that's the same thing. Like, I think maybe I was having a conversation with somebody else, but if you have 100,000 Instagram followers and Instagram goes down tomorrow, you don't have 100,000 followers or 100,000 fans. There's a difference between followers and fans. So fans, I guess, are what we're talking about. There's a spectrum with fans as well in terms of how engaged they are, how like dedicated they are, but it's not the same as having a follower. And I think the thing with social media, it's just a lot of passive action. To like something is really easy. All you do is scroll like. The value is in the people that will actually leave a comment, will hit the share button and put it into their story on IG, will repost it, will take action based on what you've asked for. And that's quite different from a follower. A follower is anyone. I follow like all my family on social media and like all of their posts just because it's my family, but it's not the same as, actively engaging.
I think that's where it's a little bit tricky, because you need to understand your followers and your fans, and how would you know who are your followers and who are your fans, So it's always, and that's, I think, again, to use the data to understand your audience, and your true fans will always comment. Followers, you'll have 1 million followers, for example, and 100 of them will really comment and be active, So I think that's important to understand your audience and use the data to release your music.
Yeah, and it's also kind of saving energy for you as an artist, right? I mean, are you competing against the 100,000 tracks uploaded a day and like trying to make it on every single platform and every single output? I mean, for sure, you want to be clued up and you want to be keeping your eyes open and looking at what's out there, looking at the landscape. But maybe you only need 1,000 fans, or maybe if your fans are paying above and beyond normal people, you might only need like 50, because they're coming to all of the shows, they're buying all of the, you probably be earning more than what you would be if you were having 100,000 streams or whatever it would be. So I mean, looking at yourself again objectively as an artist, are you one of those that needs to be making it into that X playlist or Y playlist and having a much larger pool, or are you one that can survive off something more niche? Are you just selling vinyl, or is there much more that you can engage people with? Is there more of a USP around your artist brand that you can get people involved with?
I just want to add on to that. Like, as a creative myself and someone that works in radio, my job is always looking for new music. Sometimes, like, doing the data stuff can be very, like, draining for me. I'm like, all these numbers, like, it feels a lot, but it's important to have people around you, whether they be family or management or, like, agents who can almost do that role for you, and you stay as a creative, because data is a lot. It's more than just, like, going into the studio. It's taking your time out and figuring out what it is. But of course, if some artists don't mind, then by all means you should go out and really find the data, because the data can help you go from having 1,000 followers to 100,000 and keep on rising.
See, that's actually a perfect segue for my next question, because especially with the three of you guys, your businesses are focused on taking artists and teaching them the skills and encouraging them to have those skills. How essential do you feel it is for people to be able to do these things themselves, or do you think it's better for them to be able to have the community to help them do it, to have the resources to know where to go?
I think that's probably an individual decision. I think probably as like creatives, you don't necessarily want to delve into the numbers, into the admin, into all of those bits that kind of feel a little bit boring and take you away from like creating and take you away from your art. But I actually think you, to an extent, need to be able to own a little bit of that, to own your own success. Like, organization is important. It's boring, but it's important. Like, you need to be able to respond to emails. You need to, it's a basic part of organization. So as an extension of that and thinking about how you organize your career, I think there's probably certain things that it's probably more beneficial for you to have a handle on. And I think particularly if you are not part of a major label and you don't have that kind of ecosystem around you, if you can, within your friendship group or someone that you know closely that you can find who is into data or, that side of managing an artist's career, then of course, join forces. But I do think there's value in you yourself having as much as that without being overwhelmed.
I think you also need to just, as an artist, if you're not doing it yourself, I mean, for sure you shouldn't do it if you're not good at it, but you should know enough to know if the people that are doing it for you are doing a shit job and are not screwing you over. If you're completely clueless, then, you're going to be flowing with the wind, and the people around you that are going to be running campaigns for you, you'll have no idea if the results that they're handing, because it's not always apparent. You might get a conversion rate. You might get some data from a campaign, and you might not really know whether the results are good or the results are bad if you have no idea.
Okay. So, and I'm gearing this towards you first, Jeremiah, because it's about content creation. And in terms of creating content that is the most engaging, the things that you see turn around and bring fans in and bring them closer to you, what is the most successful?
I've seen two artists now that are supported across radio. The first one was Uncle Waffles, and if you don't know who she is, she's a DJ from South Africa who is easily one of the most toured DJs in South Africa. And her moment was just her DJing. In fact, she wasn't meant to be DJing on that night, and she just got the gig, and then she was just having a good time. Her friend caught the video on camera, went on social media, went viral. Second one was Tyler. I mean, before even the new song called Water, she had a song that was just going viral, she was just dancing. So I think with content, sometimes if you plan it too much, it isn't always going to hit because you're trying to plan for a moment. Sometimes it's just you genuinely enjoying what you're doing and making something of it. So for me, I think with content creation, the key of it is just have fun. And I know it's so cliche, but it is the truth. If you don't have fun with your content, people can see through it. And yeah, I think that's just it. Like to have fun and keep it short, because we live in a day and age where if anything's past 25, 30 seconds, at least for me, I don't want to watch it. So in terms of like social media, like, yeah, short, snappy, and have fun.
I would think about how you can balance your music with just sharing who you are. So obviously no one goes on social media because you want to be promoted at. You don't want to hear, buy my new single, buy my new single. But I want to hear about Jerry or Skepta or whoever, like what they thought of Money Heist on Netflix, or I'm just interested, like if you're someone who loves cooking, like, and you just put a new meal together, like those things are interesting, and it's a way to kind of bring people into your personality, into your world, and off the back of that, I guess, keep them connected to your music. But I think ultimately it just comes down to what is manageable. It is overwhelming trying to create for every social platform. Within Instagram itself, you've got stories, you've got reels, you've got feed, you've got a broadcast channel. There are all these different avenues, and it's hard to stay on top of creating content for all of those platforms. So really, like, what's easy for you to do? One thing that we always tell our artists when we're doing campaigns is document, don't create. So you're constantly making content without realizing it. So you being in the studio, us being on this panel, it literally just takes someone to record like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. If you're in the studio, put your phone on record, leave it in the corner at the end of the session. You know, you've got all of that information, you've got all of that data, decide all of that footage, decide afterwards how you want to cut it down to tell a story, but in the process, just document it and then later figure out how you piece it all together to be strategic for your campaign or just to kind of show what it is that you're working on. So I think a big part of it is what is manageable and how can you best balance talking about your music with just who you are as a person and using that to bring people a little bit closer to you.
I think personally, it's not only about content. It should start before the content. I believe that an artist should be independent and own his rights to his music and select a team or have a team around him that will help him guide him into his into his adventure. Okay, and then I think the ego needs to be a little bit less, because I know that a lot of artists think they can do it themselves. They're big egos. I speak from experience. So, and then of course I know a lot of artists that released music with a simple lyric video. And one of the artists, my friend Saad Lamjarad, he released Anti, a song in 2013, a simple music lyrics video, and it became a major hit. And it was the starting point of his career. So, you know, content is good, but if you don't have a solid plan and you have a team that works with you and you understand where you want to go, how you want to release, because a lot of artists just release music, you know, and not all the music is good. And then you can have the best content. If the music is bad, it's not going to work. So I think it's a combination.
If I may just kind of hop in here, because I know that Faisal has a really good story about the first song that Saad made, and about the decision-making process that came into how you chose what style of music to create. And I think that's quite relevant to what we're talking about here, when we're talking about it's not just about the data, it's about what music you create to cater to those fans, and kind of knowing right from the beginning what you're making and what you're having a strategy. So yeah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. The
story for Saad Lamjarad, in 2013, I heard his song, Anti. And we were talking about the release of the song, and he had a vision. He wanted to enter the MENA market because he's from Morocco, and he was still not very, very big. So he adapted his music according to this market, and you could hear it back in the selected rhythms, the arrangement of the music. And so his main target was, I need to enter the Middle East. And it was a simple lyric video, not too expensive, but the music was for that market. And it became a big, big success in that market. And that was the starting point for the career. And after that, of course, all the other songs that he released were with the same vision, the same strategy. You know, just understand what you want to do and how to do it, and then it will work.
Amazing. Okay, we have time for one last question, and then we're opening it up to the audience. So, what are the most common oversights you see people do when it comes to creating content, creating fans, engaging with their fans? What do you see people do that you're like, oh my God, you were so close, and you just missed it?
Spending budget on the wrong track. Yeah, a lot of investment, expensive music videos with a bad song and no plan.
For me, I think it's when you mentioned about ego, I feel like some people, when they're so close to having their 1,000th follower and they see like their income starting to change, they forget who they are and why they started their journey. And I've seen it happen so many times with artists. They get that moment and then their super fans that they had who loved them for who they were, they change and then they start to lose the authenticity of the super fans they had. So for me, I think it would be to either drop the ego or just remember why you started your journey, like why you're doing it. And people can always tell, like, when you're starting to change your character. And of course, we all change musical journeys, like Skepta, who is a massive grime and rap artist in the UK, is now doing electronic music. And of course, it opens up a new fan base for him, but in the same breath, you know, it's about being authentic to who your original fans are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think too many artists feel such intense pressure these days to do what everybody else is doing. But I think, yeah, you like we've been saying all along, I think you have to be super objective and look at what music you're creating, what your focus platforms are, what your focus fan base are, and what is actually required to get you there. Like, do you need to be releasing a single every 3 weeks because that's what everybody else is doing? Do you need to be running campaigns on every track and like just tiring people because you're always, you know, at the front of their feed? Sometimes it's too much, or sometimes it's too little. Sometimes you might just drop an album out of the blue and do no lead up. So it's kind of, yeah, it's not like one size fits all. But I think ultimately it comes down to that authenticity and having a strong vision of who you are, what you represent, and where you're going and who you're targeting.
I think I would say releasing music and not being visible for long enough or promoting for long enough. There's obviously, I guess it maybe ties into ego, and maybe it's more to do with, like, I don't know, confidence, where people will like release music and talk about it once and expect that everybody's just from there, you know, gonna go and buy it, gonna engage with it, gonna do all the things that you hope that they'll do without you continuing to talk about it. And I just saw like an article that Jared Leto like scaled the building to promote his new album. So you as an independent artist, if that's what those are the levels that he's going to, then I think it's an indication that you also should probably be consistent and do the most that you can to get your music out there. Tyler, the Creator, talks a lot as well about like constantly talking about his music. Like, it's something that he's super proud of, that he's put his soul into, you know, like, why would you not keep talking about it? Like, 2 years later, he's still talking about his older albums because he's really proud of that music. And I think it's probably a mindset to adopt, that you can't just promote things or talk about things once or twice and expect to get the results out of it that you want, or expect people to just find the music, to buy tickets, to come to your shows. Like, social media particularly, it's completely saturated. It's loud, it's noisy. There used to be a stat that it takes 8 times for someone to see a piece of information before they act on it. So you saying on the first day of your release, here's my new single, enjoy, well, then that's how far you'll go the first 24 hours, and that's the life cycle of it. So I think, yeah, having the consistency to have a long enough plan for your music so that you're constantly talking about it and trying to keep it top of mind for as long as possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry to not open it up to wider questions, but we've run out of time. Oh. Afterwards. You look so disappointed. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.